All right. Hello, Chrissy. Good to see you. Today we have Chrissy here, and I'm going to be talking to her about her blog, Joy Through Chaos. She's had quite a journey, and she's had a lot of success under her belt. So I want to know more about that, where you were getting stuck, how you got unstuck, and where you are today. And with all that said, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and what your blog is and why you started blogging.
Sure. Thanks, Allison. So my blog is Joy Through Chaos, like Allison had mentioned. I had been at that blog I started it in February of 2017. So we're a little over 3 years now. And I started blogging initially because I started staying home from work. I stayed home with my oldest, and I very quickly realized I did not like that and I needed something to do. So I found blogging and I'm like, oh, I can do that. Anybody can start a blog. Right. Anybody can start a blog. So I started that domain with the intent of it would just be like this general, like mom life overwhelm thing. And I quickly realized that that was not right. So I pivoted and I used some of my healthcare background to start writing about kids' health and safety and wellness. And while that felt good, I quickly grew like my Pinterest traffic, my Google SEO traffic, but I kind of hit a plateau around, at right around 12,000 to 15,000 page views a month. It felt like I hit a wall and I just couldn't get over that wall. And I was sitting there for about 4 or 5 months before I started working with Allison. And is there more? Should I keep going?
No, I mean, yes, but let me ask you another question first. So
Okay,
before working with me, you had
yeah.
been in, I'd love to know, like, so you were in other masterminds and other things, and how did those programs help you? And then where did you feel like you were like not, because they were really helpful, like they got you to a certain point, but at some point you were like, okay, now what? Or like, so I'm kind of curious to know how other things you purchased like helped you to grow and what you learned about blogging through those other programs, and then where you got, like, what was the question in your mind that wasn't getting answered, or, and maybe you don't know that question, but that's kind of what I want to go back to.
Yeah, so let's see. My very first blogging course purchase ever was EBA, Elite Blog Academy, and that was kind of my first foray into blog education. And as I started going through EBA, I started to get frustrated, and I know now that that course is not meant necessarily for new bloggers. At the time when I purchased it, I thought it was going to be like this end-all be-all one place of information, and I would just have the answers to all the questions. And I quickly realized that I needed to kind of like fill in the gaps a little bit. So I started supplementing with other courses, like Pinning Perfect, Adventures in SEO with Lena Gott, Stupid Simple SEO, and tons of other little courses. And then eventually, a few months in, so right around, like, I want to say 5 or 6 months in to blogging period, I found Kim Anderson, who I love, and I've worked with Kim for years with mastermind groups, and then also she has like a membership community, and then I've gone to her blogging retreats. So I worked with Kim almost exclusively up until I started working with you, Allison. But I think through all of like the piecemealing of courses together, so you have like EBA, and then you have all of the other assorted courses that I purchased, and then masterminds, and they're all great. But the thing that I kept coming back to and kept getting stuck on was this feeling that I didn't know my people well enough to sell them things or well enough to make money. And ultimately, I felt strongly that I was missing like this mindset piece. Like everybody I know that has a blogging course talks about finding your avatar and finding your niche and refining all of these things, but ultimately, like, yeah, that may have been my problem, but a larger symptom of that was that I wasn't confident enough in the direction that I was going. So it was this continual sticking point in my brain of, okay, I don't know my people well enough, so I can't sell them things. Yeah.
Great, thank you for all that. And just kind of for other people who maybe aren't familiar, maybe you can tell us like like the number one thing that you benefited from Elite Blog Academy, and like the number one thing you benefited from Kim Anderson, just so people can understand because I know those programs are both very popular and well known, but maybe some people don't know what they do.
So EBA, I feel like, is a really solid like framework. Like if you are looking for a roadmap to follow, it's a great roadmap, but it falls short a little bit because it is a roadmap. Like you still have to like take the daily steps and do the daily actions to be successful. And that's where I feel like EBA loses a little bit, because it doesn't have really any accountability to go along with it. It's a framework, a very complete framework, but there were gaps. So I turned to Kim to kind of fill in those gaps, and Kim was really great. She helped me kind of break down goals and recognize like the steps that I needed to take to make consistent progress, which was awesome. And so I feel like those are kind of like the differences in the programs, right? Kim's really good at looking at where you are, where you want to go, and kind of chopping that down into smaller bites, and then keeping you accountable for those things. So when I was working with Kim, I was at probably 1,000 page views a month to 15,000 page views. And granted, I worked with her for a few years, but I had tremendous growth working with her. So yeah. But the way that she kind of breaks things down for you and says, these are the actions that you need to take this month to continue moving the ball forward.
That's funny.
Without having to go ahead.
You just reminded me of like Desiree a little bit, because you are making money in your blog even before you came to me, but it was just not a whole lot, and it was mostly from service-based work. But one thing Desiree said when I chatted with her was, I had a lot of wins and none of them had dollar signs. Mm-hmm. But that's huge. Like 15,000 monthly sessions. Like I worked for a business that was like #1 for all of their top ranking keywords on Google, and they only had 10,000 sessions, and that was like massive. So for like individual bloggers like us to have that much traffic, like some people would kill for that. So tell me what ultimately made you decide to join my program, the Monetization Accelerator program, and then there was a couple of really big shifts that happened for you, and I'd love you to talk about those.
So one of the things that I think first kind of drew me in to work with you, Allison, was that you had this mindset forward approach. And I knew ultimately that for me, I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs. I knew that I had my own mindset issues that I needed to work through to kind of have some sort of significant progress, right? The conversations that I kept having in my head always centered back around, well, I don't know what post to write this week because I don't know what my people want to hear. And when you have that mentality, putting out any kind of new content is a challenge. So chatting with somebody who says, listen, I'm going to help you kind of get over those hurdles, figure out like a system to sit down and focus and say, yes, I can work on this mindset stuff, but at the same time, still make progress, was really fascinating. And I wanted to jump in, and I wanted to do it. And I wanted to see how doing that kind of work would help my bottom line.
Cool. And so in the program, you, at one point, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you made a lot of progress early on, following the steps, and then you kind of stalled out a little bit. And you stalled out at a place where a lot of people stall out. And so I'd love for you to talk about that story.
Yeah. So I did all of the mindset work, and I probably the first 4 to 6 weeks of the program, I felt like I had this renewed energy. I had a renewed sense of purpose. I knew where I was going. Everything felt great. And then we got to this point where you're okay, now you're going to sell something. And I was well, I should probably work on my opt-in again, and maybe I should make a new one, and then maybe I'll think about a product. And you're no, you need to sell something. I was oh, okay, sell something. Right. Cool. But it was, I think I went through probably 3 weeks of that, 4 weeks maybe. And it was finally, I think it was maybe week 9 or 10 in the program, you kind of point blank said, you are going to launch something next week. And I point blank said, I'm going to break out into hives. And I can't believe somebody finally looked at me and just said, do this thing that you've been putting off for almost 3 years. And so that was kind of my journey through the program.
Yeah. And then, so something really interesting happened after that. So, and this is just to kind of preface this with, like, sometimes we think that thinking about something is what will make us come to a decision. Really? Never jump the gun. Okay, hope you get comfortable. Sometimes we think that thinking about something and planning about something, talking to mentors, sometimes we think that's what's going to bring clarity. And the thing that I always say is, like, you have to take action, and not every action is going to result in the results that you want, but you're not going to gain more clarity than from anything than taking action. So I kind of want to go through, once I finally like shoved you off the ledge, something really big happened for you.
Yeah, and that's the perfect preface, because I think for the longest time I had just been talking about taking action and getting feedback, and that all felt like progress, but it wasn't actually progress, right? So that weekend after that call, I was sitting at my computer and I was writing sales emails. Had the product, it was done. Like, I was ready to just write the sales emails and launch it to my list. Which at that point my list was right around 1,000. So, and as I was writing the emails, I just kept getting so frustrated. My husband at one point came up to me and he was kind of like, why are you forcing this? Were his exact words, why are you forcing this? And I'm a very blunt person. So I remember like spinning around and looking at him and going, what the F do you mean? What am I doing forcing? Why am I forcing this? Obviously this is going to work. Like, part of our whole life plan hinges on my success as an online entrepreneur. And he was like, no, I don't mean, why are you forcing online entrepreneurship? He means, I mean, why are you forcing this topic? And so that kind of led to this whole like big conversation, like, where ultimately we decided that, like, yeah, what I write about, so the kids, health and safety and wellness and all of that, like, while I'm good at that and my medical background like gives me the authority to speak on that, it's not ultimately what's going to drive our bottom line forward and help us do the things that we want to do in the next 10 years. I was consistently competing with people like WebMD and Healthline and, powerhouses in the kids' health and wellness space. And me as a little itty bitty blogger, I probably would never in Google's eyes be able to compete with them. And I think that's part of the reason why I kept getting stuck. So we decided to kind of shift our focus to something that, how do you say this the right way? We shifted our focus a little bit to a kind of a niche and a topic that we hold really near to our hearts as a family, but also like it's consumer forward to get into the niche where we're going, or where I've kind of decided to go. You have to throw down money. So I don't feel bad asking people to buy things and click links, because throwing down dollars is part of what happens when you go that route. So ultimately I decided to kind of pivot from my health and safety website and pivot into camping and RVing together as a family, because that's something that I have grown up doing and now my family does it and we love it. So yeah.
Awesome. So the exciting part for me was not hearing from Chrissie for a couple weeks in the program, and then reaching out, and she recorded a 7-minute Loom video because she didn't want to type it all out, and explain this pivot that happened where she was had literally finally started launching, and then realized that she was forcing something that didn't feel aligned. But had she not started launching, she wouldn't have known that. And then when you were sharing all that with me, the ideas for what the opt-in is, what the low cost offer is, what the high cost offer is, it's clear as day. Whereas before, it was just spinning in circles to the point of going all the way back to creating a new free offer, which you had so many before. That was the exciting thing for me. And one thing I told Chrissie, because she was I feel like I, bought this program and didn't utilize it, and I was like, well, I feel like this is exactly why you were meant to be in this program, and that's why, a lot of times in my business, I have a coach. Why I'm really passionate about coaching is because if you're in, like the most popular model for courses is to have a really, really, really big group and everybody gets on a Zoom call and nobody really gets spoken to. And when you're in that, when you're not getting really direct, specific feedback and mindset help, like you're not, you can disappear. And so I feel like a huge purpose of this program for you, at least this initial 12 weeks, was like you finally have clarity on what you're going to sell. That's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah, I think, being forced, like having my hand forced, and because I'm a person who, if you tell me to do something, I'm going to do it, right? I hire coaches because they're smarter than me. So when Allison kind of said, you're going to do this, I'm like, all right, I don't have a choice. I have to do it. And then ultimately sitting down to do the work and getting so stuck and having that conversation with my husband almost felt like I was not really cheating on Allison, right? But I wasn't going to do the action that she told me to do. So for a bit, I think there was probably like a week where I was like, I don't even want to tell her what I'm doing, but I probably should. And when I finally did, it was so helpful to hear you say that, like, no, I think you got what you were looking for when you signed up for this program. You came to me and you felt like everything was muddy and heavy and like you needed clarity, and you're walking out of this with clarity. So I think that was an extremely helpful conversation.
Yeah. Cool. So I would love to know anything else you want to share at all, first of all, and then second of all, like what advice do you have for newer bloggers? Because I think what you experience is unfortunately kind of common, where people blog for years and years and you are making money, like, which is, so some people come to me and I ask them, like, how much money have you made? And they say $26. I say, $26 a month? That's a good start. And I say, no, all time, 7 years, $26. So you are making money, which is great. But I'd love to know, like, for newer bloggers who are just getting started or not making money, like, what do you wish you knew before?
Ooh, that's a big question. So I think for me, the most helpful realization, and I just had this like within probably the last 2 or 3 weeks, was, I got into blogging and I didn't really know where I was going, right? I was just going to write a bunch of stuff and then hopefully one day make money. And I think that's where a lot of people start. But had I had some like additional foresight, I would have thought more about like, okay, what am I going to sell? What do I want to sell and how do I want to make money? And then built everything off of that. So like find the thing that I want to sell and then almost work backwards to the free content and the free things. Because I think doing that now with this new like area that we're kind of going into, I have so much more clarity and so much more focus if I know the ultimate goal is to sell this thing. And then also I feel like I spend a lot of time just getting stuck and not making real actual progress. So, and I think that kind of comes back to mindset. So don't be afraid to work on your mindset and limiting beliefs, and recognizing that even though you don't think you have limiting beliefs, that you do in fact have limiting beliefs. Because for a long time I was like, mindset is just a bunch of woo-woo baloney that doesn't really do anything for you. And then I was like, oh no, this actually works. So know what you want to sell, and then also be willing to do your own like mindset work so that you can make meaningful progress.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, mindset is, I always thought it was woo too. And then last year I just realized it wasn't woo. And then like, new level, new devil. Every time you level up in your business, there's a new thing you have to work on. But yeah, just the practical component of like, why do I think this isn't gonna work? And then working through the fact that it will work, or that you're gonna find a way. So, well, congratulations. I look forward to continuing to work with you. But I'm really excited about this new direction. I want to already buy all the things and get all the done for you camper trip services and mechanic advice. I don't have a camper, but we've definitely, well, that's a boring story. Anyway, congratulations. I'm so excited for you. Anything else you want to share?
No, that's it. I mean, I have really enjoyed also working with you, Allison, and I think it kind of came at a time where I felt stuck and I just needed someone to tell me, do this thing. And you are a voice that was kind of willing to speak and to say, you have to take this action. And for me, that was invaluable. So I will always be grateful for that.
I'm so excited. Thank you. So I'm honored for that compliment and grateful for you. So, all right, guys, you can follow Chrissie at Joy Through Chaos, or maybe possibly another URL. And if so, I'll link it down below. But thank you again, Chrissie.
Thank you so much, Allison. Have a good day.
You too.